All right. So first up is more of like a. Let me first write out, by the way. The first is more like for your information. I was already messaging you, Lori, on Slack.
Yes, I see that.
I found out yesterday that
Oh,
I was working with through the participants of A/B testing, and then there was an error, the worst one in the survey, which resulted in that if you got through the questions and you answered, "Oh, I don't work with GitLab," which it is informational to us that if you are or you don't, but it should be a blocker from you entering the
yeah.
um, the research, and then it just cut them off. They couldn't give their
Oh,
contact information, so their all their responses were rendered useless. So out of the 48 or 43 participants, we only got like 6 people because those were the ones that used GitLab at all. Um, Only those we got some contact details. Good news is there are some really interesting ones between them, but not enough. Like I need
yeah.
at least one more engineer and one more designer. So we need to send them out again. Yeah, there's a real bummer, I would say.
Yeah, I had the same problem with one of my other surveys too, that I tested it and it showed up and everything worked fine, but that's exactly what was happening. And I don't know why when I tested the flow, it showed fine. But when you go back through the survey flow, you can see that they're not getting asked that question. Why am I getting presented that question when it's not in the survey flow? No idea. So I'm trying to fix it, but we'll see if I can get that to go.
Yeah, the survey has already been fixed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I posted an update, I believe, in the issue, which I also sent to you. Like I was messaging you and
Okay.
Rupert. So the survey is already fixed. Like it had like with some trial and error, I had to click through the survey like 6 times to
Yep.
figure out if I now did it right, yes or no.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, it does make me wonder, and I've said this before, that the
Yeah.
user experience of Qualtrics is
I know.
atrocious.
It
It is
is.
not easy to see if you've made a mistake. You need to walk through the survey like a dozen times.
Yeah, I
Is there
know.
is there a good reason that we're using Qualtrics and not just like some other application for that? Because I cannot believe that there's not a better application for us than Qualtrics.
So Qualtrics is really, it's just like Office. It's like Microsoft Office. It's very, very powerful, but it's not intuitive to use. And the skip logic and the sheer fact that I can show somebody a question based on the answers to another question that they make, like even a force ranking question, that's a Qualtrics thing. You can't do that in Forms. You can't do that in SurveyMonkey. I think Typeform's another option, but they don't allow you to do that either. So it's really super powerful. It's just that it's not, I agree, like the UX is horrific and it's not intuitive to go through and choose what you need to choose for options. So that's why I always encourage people, like if you don't need all of those starter questions, just take them out. If it's just merely an informative question, don't put it in there. If you don't need to know if they use GitLab or not, don't ask them. If you don't need to know how many people they are working with, don't ask them. Make it as simple as possible for yourself in the survey to try to reduce
But
these. There's
yeah,
not errors. It's just not intuitive. The survey flow sucks. I hate that tool. I had I had a survey one time get corrupted on whatever server node it was sitting on, that I had to reach out to Qualtrics help via chat. And they actually had to remake it on another node because I couldn't get the survey flow to work. Like it wouldn't add things, it wouldn't move things around the survey flow. So I hear you. I've been dealing with it on my end since from before this job. This has always been this way in Qualtrics. They have never changed. I don't know if some of it's like we have to be fancy and really hard to use so we could justify the cost or what. I have no idea. But I feel your pain, Dimitri, and I'm so sorry that that happened and you missed out on people's contact information.
Yeah, because what is the feature that sets Qualtrics apart? You already mentioned it, but I missed it.
So it's flexibility and the powerfulness of the logic within the survey creation. So for instance, Ian's survey he put together for his jobs to be done, he had people rank the jobs to be done that they felt most matched or were most important to them, right? So 1 to 5. You can actually use a setting in Qualtrics to only ask a set of questions based on whatever option they put in slot 1 or slot 5 or wherever on that ranking question. That's just an example. You can't do that in SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey, you can skip questions and you can display things in addition to answers that they give you, but you can't say if they choose this answer, then it's like the Boolean logic is just not there in other platform tools.
Gotcha. Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, we can do it with Qualtrics, but you know, like it makes me wonder, like, if the UX would have been better, I would easily spotted that. And now it was just like, did I fix it or didn't I? And then eventually by trial and error, you see, I think I fixed it. I hope this is good enough.
I have spent 2 hours on somebody's survey before trying to fix it because it's been so complicated. I have actually gone into the survey flow and deleted everything out of it and just started over again because it's so difficult to understand. So you're not alone, Dimitri, you're not alone. And I haven't found any foolproof like tutorials or anything that will get me around what I'm doing wrong. Because usually it's that Boolean logic and I just don't think like a coder. So it's hard for me to spot my errors before I go through them. I know.
So it's the last thing I'm gonna say on this because I know we're not being like this is good as is. The skeptic in me says there has to be another tool that does exactly the same and more in a better way than Qualtrics. But that's the skeptic in me. It cannot be in this huge world that there's only Qualtrics.
I don't know of any, but it doesn't mean that there isn't any. So that is fair to say. So I would encourage you to go out and see if you can find one.
Let me see. This is in the wrong one. There. Anyway, on to the next one, solution validation. This is perhaps a more important one. I was wondering how you were thinking, Lori, on what are other state groups doing in terms of solution validation? Like how many times do they set it up? How do they set it up generally? Like what is the amount? And do you have any tips on and expectations for, like, I want to do more solution validation in progressive delivery. And it's not just because I want to do them, it's more because like I want to make it the default part of our flow of working. I've been discussing earlier today with Nadia on like there's perhaps potential to put more quantitative data tracking inside of our product, and in that way kind of like part of a feature say we expect it to reach this amount of usage based on this, and if it's not, then we say, all right, the solution has not been validated, or yada yada yada. Yeah, I was wondering like advice in that direction.
So how I look at the term validation is not how much is being used. That's usage data. That's because you can't say just because somebody's using it, it's meeting their needs. It may be the only option they have and they're trying to make it work. So when I use the term validation, I refer to either some sort of unmoderated study where we put something in front of people and ask them questions and they tell us answers, or we do a qualitative study to validate that the thing that we've designed or the thing that we propose is the thing that will allow them to achieve their task with the lowest amount of effort and struggle. So while you can look at the usage data and see like, hey, this new thing that we launched is getting used by 50% of our people, it still doesn't tell you if they're having trouble with it. It just says that they're using it. So it's helpful to know how much is being consumed, but you'd still want to go back maybe and find out, is it helping? Are you able to do what you need to do with it, or look on Twitter or issues or whatever if somebody's complaining? So in ideas of working in more solution validation, I don't know what the other stage groups are up to. It's weird. I'm in a weird position as a staff person. I don't really get to act as a staff. I'm really kind of as a staff, but I'm also doing my other jobs. So I don't really get to sit in on anybody else's meetings or really find out what they're up to. I wish I could. But what I'd like to tell them, if I could talk to them, is if you are unsure about the thing that you've just created, if you have any doubts at all, run some validation testing on the thing that you created. Run it prior to it getting put out in the world, please. And running in that thing, whatever those tests are, don't always have to be qualitative sit-down sessions. Sometimes they can be unmoderated things. Sometimes it's like a 5-second quick test, or whatever kind of method that we need to use in order to get confidence around the questions that a designer has about the thing that they created.
So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Like you say, like, hey, I'm not sitting in those meetings, but you are joining like these kind of like UXPM meetings across multiple stage groups, right?
No,
so,
I don't have any time to do that, Dimitri. Between going to our meetings and trying to figure out what enablement needs, I don't, and I'm not even invited to anybody else's meetings.
Is this meeting special in that case? I thought you were doing that for all in Verify.
I'm doing it within Verify and Release, yes, but not outside of Verify and Release. So if you're talking about like Juan and them, they're doing this. They're validating when they have questions around their designs. So Hayana will go if she's got uncertainty around how something should be presented or what the workflow should be around some feature for release management. She will dive in and do some solution validation to understand if what she's designed will work for them. Jackie will do it too. She'll take it on as well from a PM perspective.
So the thing that I'm wondering about is like, what is the frequency they're doing this with? Are they recruiting like external participants for this? Because that takes a long time. Like it can easily take 3-4 weeks before you're finally speaking towards the people you need to be speaking with.
It seems to differ. So Juan talks to a lot of internal people because his stuff in testing is a lot internal because they were in a dog fooding stage for a while before I think their category just moved in maturity. So he was talking to a lot of GitLab people. So it was easy for him to find people. For Runner, I think he talked to some internal people, then I think he talks to some external people. Darren, the PM's trying to find some external people. They were going to use some TAMs to try to find some people to talk to about Runner. Hayana for release management, I don't think that they're not constantly doing validation because the design work takes time, but Jackie's constantly talking to customers. So, and when I say talking, Jackie always has an idea of what she wants to learn. She has questions that she writes up that she references. So it's not an informal customer conversation. It's more formal than that, but it may not be as formal as a discussion guide every time, which is, I kind of want it to be, but I'm going to let that go. Yeah. And so she has her own style, but she's asking the questions in an unbiased way. So that makes me happy. So I think sometimes Jackie might work in some of the questions for Hayana in her conversations that she's having with customers. And she is constantly talking to people. I don't know where she finds them, but she's constantly talking. Let's see who else. James will do some problem validation and testing, and he will try to find some customers. But like I feel like I did the last external problem validation for them, and we tried to find external customers who were doing accessibility testing for them. But he has a project he's just starting to work on to try to reach outside. Now that their category has gotten more mature, they're going to have to go outside. They can't just rely on inside people anymore. Who am I forgetting? And of course we know, oh, Tao does not do it. you know the situation with Tao. Yeah. So there's no set cadence that I can find. What I think the biggest issue is in what I've told you guys since like October, you're doing my job. And in order to do somebody else's job, you cannot do your job at 100%. So they're struggling trying to work in time for design, time for validation, time for understanding the problem even, from both the PM perspective and any sort of problem validation that needs to happen that the PM should be doing. So that coupled with all the other stuff the designer has to do, I don't think that they're doing, no one designer is doing a solution validation every milestone. I feel like it's like every other milestone, maybe every other and a half milestone. But it also depends on what they're working on and how quickly and how much confidence they have with what they're working on. If it came straight out of an issue that had lots of great comments and it was very clear about what people need this thing to do, they tend to have a better confidence around it. I do encourage them to go and get user feedback, but like you say, recruiting does take a long time. I mean, I'm still trying to recruit for my stuff and I'm just asking about merge requests.
Yeah, the thing that I noticed with A/B testing, I've known this before, but it's kind of become so obvious with A/B testing, is that if I do internal interviewing, I can be done within 3 days, including the interviewing.
Sure.
Including the interviewing. Imagine that.
Well, yeah, because you can just reach out to people and they can say they're available or not. And yeah. So that brings to question that if I have to review or like interview things, I understand it is necessary, but it makes the barrier so much higher. And if I just want to do some quick like validation, if like, hey, is this a good idea? Yes or no? What I notice out of like some of the, like I've also had, like some conversations with, for example, people from Create, they often pull in some devs, they ask them some questions and bam, solution validated, be it internal or external participants or not. Like if I'm honest, like if I want to do solution validation and ramp up my quantity of solution validation for whatever reason, right? Like there's multiple reasons which I go into a little bit in a bit. It doesn't bring me in terms of like I have to come up with a really, really, really good reason to say that I need external participants, because it will make the time frame in which I can do my solution validation or problem validation for that matter so much longer. Like, and I know, and that's I know, I hear you.
I can do the same. So if wait, one more thing. So if I have to, if people see my work and they say, oh, Denis is on a good track, he's doing like 5 solution validations a month, man, this guy is on fire. And they see someone in another stage group and they say like, yeah, this guy is only doing 1 solution validation, but that other one is doing 1 external solution, like with external participants, and I do it only with internal. Like I cheat code my way out of this whole thing. It doesn't matter from the external, like if that was the thing you're gonna rank it by, that is what I'm saying. So like it is very easy to be biased towards internal interviewing. I'm wondering, like,
well, my advice, internal versus external, part of it is, are the internal people truly the people who should be using this feature? And are they the only people who should be using this feature? Meaning, do we as internal people embody what an enterprise organization might be? Are there any differences there? Sometimes there's not. A DevOps is a DevOps is a DevOps sometimes, depending on what you need feedback for. Sometimes there are differences. With growth, it's hard, I know, because they're trying to, I mean, they can't even recruit people who don't use our stuff. It's not easy for them to find people, and that's probably why they're using internal people. And they're probably in the dog fooding stage too. So that's another good reason that you can use internal people if you're trying to dog food a solution. But there are some times where you have to use external people. If you, like release managers, I don't even know if we have any internal, how many we have. But if you're trying to create like a persona for release managers, you're going to need to go find external participants for that study, because that is, you need the variation there, the variety there. If you've got a small feature that you just want to make sure that you've implemented it correctly, and the people who would be using that feature are the same as some internal participants, I don't see why you can't use internal participants. But you are right, there is a bias towards using internal people because they're there, right? You can just ask a Slack channel and be like, hey, somebody's jump on a quick 15-20 minute conversation with me, I need some feedback about this. The other thing that internal participants won't have is a desire to use anything different than GitLab. External people will.
Yeah.
So
like for the A/B
that's
testing, it is very important to have the external participants as well. Like, I think I'm taking it quite far with the A/B testing. I've done 7 internal interviews. I'm now doing probably 6 external ones to get a better perspective of what is being used out there. But it was also because internal interviewing is so easy, and there's a wide variety of personas being like using A/B testing. So it's like a different kind of, like every research is kind of different. But I'm a little bit like if I ask myself, should I do external participant interview or internal? Like, yeah, ideally I should have external interviews, but like, can I do with internal? Most of the time my answer is gonna be yes, because it might not be ideal, but it gets me there 60% of the way, and it will do it in 3 days instead of 4 weeks.
Well, and that's the other thing you have to keep in mind is the rigor that you're using with the testing. If you are only worried about getting it done faster, you're going to sacrifice the rigor every time. And I don't use that word like it has to be academic research where we do all these horrible longitudinal studies that go on for months. But I use that word meaning, if you are only going 60% of the way, to me, you're wasting your time. You need to get closer to 80 to 90% of whatever it is that you need to get confirmed. And if that means working in some external participants and taking more time to do it, you really should do that. Because 60% is too close to 50 for me. And that for me, that's not enough rigor. And on top of that, Dimitri, to be honest with you guys, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, the company has to understand you either sacrifice rigor and continue to go very, very fast and own up to the fact that you will make mistakes, and does that mean for your customers? Or the company turns around and looks and says, we have to slow down a little bit with some of this in order to get a higher level of rigor in our decisions and our research. And I can't tell the company what to do. All I can suggest to other people is, like, if it's something of critical things, because again, it does depend. Like if it's something small, or if it's something just in addition to something else, that can be a different decision. But if it's like a brand new feature, we're trying to get market share, kind of trying to corner, get people away from another product, I would err on the side of wanting more rigor for that and going towards more external participants to make sure that we're getting that, than if it's just a small improvement to something that we've done internal. Like Nadia.
So I'm gonna ask you an honest question.
Please
if if you had to step in GitLab's shoes and you had to answer that question, which of the choice GitLab would pursue?
I would say we have, if what I'm hearing is true about people complaining about the fact that they like us, but it's hard to use, or it's not intuitive, or the errors don't make sense, and all these tiny 1,000 little paper cuts, then I would say you have to stop and slow that down. You need to slow it down, and you need to go deeper in the things that you're doing to make sure that you're not making silly choices or silly mistakes. That's what I would say if I was the company.
I agree. But if you are GitLab right now and
Yeah.
you would say, all right, what do I like, where am I biased for? Then I think it's the other one. Like that's the only thing I'm saying. Like I think GitLab is like low level, shame, move fast, go, and as much as we can. And it is the opposite of what like more rigor, slow down, let's look deeper. Like it's the opposite. And what I'm saying is like, I feel that sometimes if, you know, like it is my designer ethics versus what you're being rewarded for from a company's perspective. And
I hear you.
it makes it sometimes very hard to choose, like, am I going to put in the effort to ask external participants? Like, can I not just do like a solution validation within 3 days and then be done with it and move on to the next thing? Because we solution validated it to some extent, which is better than nothing.
Right.
Yes, I agree with like if we want to move fast. So yeah, I don't have really a point to make, but I do think it's kind of it itches in the back of my head that like it takes so long. Like it's ridiculous.
I know, and you're not wrong, and you're not wrong on any point at all. And what I'll still say is, if it's something that's a big thing, a big change, a big feature, push for more rigor in whatever the process is that you need to take to get the confidence that you need to take. If it's something that's smaller, if it's a tweak, if it's an addition of a smaller feature to an existing thing, if you feel like it's okay to move fast and break things and get the confidence you can get and still move fast, then do it. I don't want to be the person to tell you you have to stop your process and slow down. It's just, I see the writing on the wall with what Sid has said and other people have mentioned. I'm like, you know, the answer to this, Sid, the answer is to slow down just a little bit. We don't have to be Microsoft. We don't have to be like a gigantic boat that just comes to a halt in the sea, but we have to slow down. And that's why the product managers don't have time to do it either, because they're running too fast too. So I don't know. And I'm sorry it's taking so long for you get participants, for external people. And I can't even get them to send my survey out to First Look. So, I mean, I was relying on Rupert, like finding people on LinkedIn to fill out my survey. And I'm like, this is not working. Please send it to First Look. So I hear you.
Let me see. Last question is on the usage data. I understand it's not validation, but the motivation I have for it is not just purely validating that a solution is like valid. It's actually like engineering and UX don't always align on what a MVC is and when a feature flag should be turned on and off.
Okay.
If we see that a feature is in there, and I can prove that when we decided on a feature to be shipped in a way that UX agreed upon, and it actually has a higher amount of usage relatively seen, versus like, oh, we're just going to ship this because we want to get done with this merge request for whatever reason. Like I can make a case, and I can make a case to say like, hey, there is an improvement in our actual usage of our data. We're providing more value to our customers if we ship a viable product rather than a minimal product.
And that's what I don't know if you can say it's value. You can say they're using it more, but maybe it's an issue that you open and you ask people to give feedback now that the feature flag's been turned on, you know, because you don't know that just because they're using it, it provides value. You just don't know that. All you know is that they're using it. Unless, and maybe you look at Twitter or other things to see if anybody's talking about that feature to find out if it is actually providing value, but usage does not denote value. It just denotes usage.
No, but it does to some extent. Like some features either have no usage, or they have some usage, or they have very small usage and they have suddenly a significant amount of usage. Even though you cannot say for sure this amounts to any value, it does
That's
make
true.
my case a lot stronger by being able to prove some numbers versus just some argument I made up from my personal like
Sure.
subjectiveness.
Yeah, you can definitely say they're using it. Yes, they're using it more than they were before. That is very valid. And you can extrapolate the fact that they're using it, meaning that they're going to it and they're interacting with it more. But that's kind of where that stops. You can't really say it's providing value. All you can really say is they're using it more than they did before. Now let's go find out if they like it. And I wish we could put up like a little survey or something. We did this at Rackspace, but we also had trouble with anybody who was doing on-prem stuff. But on the .com, we could put up a little survey that said, hey, do you like this? Happy face, sad face, you know, whatever. And if they did like a whatever face, you could ask them really quick, like, would you like to provide more information about that? And so we could get a couple of little verbatims and a little bit of a passive collection of data on like, how's it going with this new thing that we just turned on for you? We use Qualtrics for that actually, and it worked okay. Yeah, it worked okay on the .com part because we could, but we couldn't do it on the on-prem because obviously we can't. But that's also another idea that we could look into along those lines of turning on a feature flag and then doing a really light survey, like 2 questions for people. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, like
thanks for the ideas. That is a really good one. I like that.
Yeah, sure. And I'm so sorry about the survey, Dimitri. I feel your pain.
No worries, no worries. Thank you so much for helping me and hear me vent out about some of the things that,
Anytime, and just know that we're all suffering too on the research team. It's not ever as fast as we want it to be either.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.